All my life, I waited for the great adventurer to offer me a place at his side.
When I was a child, I heard voices. Some would sing and some would scream.
We wish to pay tribute to my Khan from my journeys along the Silk Road.
And in return,
If it pleases your greatness, you may take my son.
Father, what are you doing?
Father! Margaret, this will not be forever.
The walls of my kingdom stretch beyond the horizon. Will report what you see, the way things truly are.
Tread carefully, Master Polo. Your words can get you killed.
I can train you to survive in whatever world you choose to make your home.
All you have is your
This is not my home.
China, Mongolia, I will be emperor of the world.
We'll never surrender the last stronghold of the Song dynasty.
You are not one of them.
You understand nothing.
Go too deep, and you will not return.
Am I a prisoner?
Answer me!
Every corner of the land beneath this blue sky is ours for the taking. A man who proves his loyalty to me can take whatever.
I love when people take those kind of interesting historical points. You know, my old boss John Milius had a Genghis Khan script.
Oh, boy.
And I used to always think like they've got to make this. They never have. But he had a Genghis Khan script on hold, and it was just. And since then, Netflix did 2 years of a series on Genghis Khan, basically around Marco Polo, who the Smithsonian says did not exist.
Exactly. It was a creation, a literary creation.
Right. And it's so funny because my daughter found that out too at the same time I did. The Smithsonian, I remember this was mind blowing. The Smithsonian basically put forward a very, very good case. I would say a definitive case that Marco Polo was never real, but that Zorro may have been.
Yeah.
That Zorro may have been inspired by a real guy and a guy that rose up for the peasants in Mexico and California, what was now modern day Los Angeles. All right. So, but my daughter went to her school. She was like in third grade at the same time and told her teacher, she goes, Marco Polo didn't exist. And her teacher argued with her about it because it's so much ingrained in sort of like the fabric, but there's no way Marco Polo was real now. I don't see it.
No, because none of the noodles will not get you from one place to the other like that.
Right.
It's just, I mean, well, your time in Warner Brothers, you probably am aware, I spent some time in the satellite world of Warner Brothers. And we had a very, very loose connection with history. But the producers I was working for, who I believe had started out on Wonder Woman and Kung Fu and all that stuff, and they did a movie about Attila the Hun, which just had a title called Attila, I think.
I think I know it, actually.
And then our first season of Robin Hood was, we had Vikings and Mongols and Alexander the Great's death squad, but they were being, I think, deliberately iconoclastic. We argued like mad, being the stuck-up Brits that we are. At least I am. And then I realized, Richard, you don't get this, do you? It's some stuff happens in a place with some people who have names we've heard of.
Yeah.
Go. And actually, maybe that's quite damaging in terms of historical. But if it makes people interested and then they go and read up and go, in a minute, those guys were full of it. That's complete nonsense what they were talking about, The
thing that you bring to light, though, is what people think they know and what they're attached to in terms of what they think is their knowledge of a subject versus the now diminished motivation to want to learn more about a thing. Yeah. Because I thought it was fascinating to learn, and it's pretty obvious that Marco Polo didn't exist. It's actually now obvious, now having read the book, which has been rewrote dozens of times, so many times that nobody even knows who's some of the writers are on it. That tells you right away he didn't exist. You don't have to be a PhD, but if you look into the details, particularly the Chinese records, There was no
Right.
Marco Polo. And he claimed to be a governor of a province for 3 years and win all kinds of battles. And his timelines are wrong. And he doesn't mention things that would clearly one experiencing the situation would mention. But what's interesting is people would rather argue than say, that's interesting. Maybe he didn't exist. But if he didn't exist and we all know about him, how did that happen? And that in itself would be interesting to study.
And that's a more interesting story. Well, it's like the legend of Prester John. Have you come across that in your research?
Yes, I love it. Go ahead. Tell our audience what that is.
Well, I mean, I only know this much about it in that as a literary thing, people refer to Prester John. People will actually make decisions and take actions based upon the idea that Prester John is real.
Mm-hmm.
And yet go to the country of origin, and it's a bit varied as to which he's no record. Well, how can this story of this man be so real? Whereas when you try and trace it historically, poof, nothing there. So somebody created the idea of Prester John, right? For why?
Yeah.
And that's the question I always think is almost more interesting. Is why?
Or
why do
what? No, go ahead. Finish your thought there.
That's it.
But what you make me think of is who inspired the fake character? Who was real? That the textbooks didn't get. Because I always get flack for telling people who are devout Christians, which is your privilege, and you that the one of the real reasons you know so much about Jesus is the Roman records, because they were keeping tabs on him because he was a troublemaker for them.
Oh, for sure.
And I always get a bunch of blowback like that. But I always think like, no. Jesus was an absolute real human being. And the reason we know about him is because of the people that tried to keep him in check. So what are these other stories that are like John Milius in his office at Warner Brothers would always talk about the Flashman series, but he'd always finish by saying, it's no way any of it's real. And there were people that actually believed those texts were real. And it was just kind of fascinating, but we go like, why, what is it? Like what created Marco Polo and what real elements? Like, is this just a writer's attempt to thread together a very interesting historical point, which is what I just did in a book, create a fictional character to sort of thread together real things that you want people to know? I don't know, but it's fascinating. But people should be more open-minded when it comes to history.
Your road to redemption is paved with tombstones. No quarter, kill all masters. Go to noquarterkillallmasters.com. Rated R.